My guy, Zach, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Otherwise, a.k.a. Thrift for Lay.
Thrift for Lay. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Nah, man, just a conversation between two homies. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the past couple of years.
You too, man.
Even more specifically on the Burn You Out shoot.
Yep.
I came over to your house, and I mean, this is some exclusive information, but you just got your walls filled with anything imaginable that someone could possibly.
You can say I have some stuff over there.
You have some stuff. So to start this off, I just want to know, what's the genesis of Thrift for Lay? Like, how did you come upon, first off, that name? Because I think it's genius. And then what inspired you to just have the eye and have the vision for vintage clothing?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely been a whole process. It's like I didn't start out doing clothes. Mm-hmm. I started selling like toys and stuff like that. And then I figured out that like there was some good money in clothes. So it started out, just trying to make money as a young guy, I didn't want to like mow lawns. I don't know. What else were we doing when we were like 13, 14, trying to make money, when you couldn't have like a real job. Yeah. So I was just doing that. But then I wanted to stand out. I think I wanted to sell and wear clothes that was like unique. And because I always had like Old Navy hand-me-downs and stuff. Old Navy's coming back. I have to shout out Old Navy. That's kind of, I don't know. It's not bad. It's good stuff. But I don't know. It's Old Navy. It's like hand-me-downs. I wanted to pop out. I wanted to stand out and look nice. So yeah, I started thrifting and selling that. And then once I got to college, that's when I like made Thrift for Lay. Okay. Me and my friend Alex, we were in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, and we had been thinking about a name for like a long time. Man, it was like really frustrating. We were just really trying to figure something out.
The name is always like the hardest part.
Yeah, and then it's like almost like something you build your whole persona and your whole brand around. So it's a very important thing. I feel like if you pick the wrong name, it can be detrimental. Yeah. But we were just like, Thrift for Lay. Let's do Thrift for Lay. Mm-hmm. Chick-fil-A, Thrift for Lay. People love Chick-fil-A, so why not just put Thrift for Lay? Yeah. And then it was just, I don't know, it was too smooth not to do, so we just did it.
And in that moment, did you said you started off kind of collecting toys, and then you started thrifting. What was the point that you're like, okay, you're not only you're buying the thrift clothing and toys, but then when did you decide to like resell it, and what went into?
Well, I always resold it. Like we sold like a pack of DVDs or something from a garage sale, and then like some Star Wars like Princess Leia cutouts, like cardboard cutouts. Yeah. My mom actually threw that one away, I think. But we had like a Darth Vader one, and we had some other stuff. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But we sold those, and it's almost like I've always sold it. But then when I got into clothing, like probably because I saw this guy on YouTube that had been selling it and going to the thrift stores.
And what time? What do you remember? What year this was around?
Yeah, I was like 7th or 8th grade, so probably like I don't know, like 2013 maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Sure. 7th or 8th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought he was so cool. It's a guy on YouTube, it's Soul Food San Fran. It's this guy out of San Francisco. But back in the day, he's an OG thrifter guy. He's been doing like vintage clothes for years. So shout out to him, man. He really put a lot of people on. Yeah. But he used to do these YouTube videos where it would be like, hey man, like he had all this stuff on his kitchen counter and all this stuff on the ground. It was like all this polo, all these Jordans, all this really cool like I don't know, kind of streetwear 90s style stuff, and he'd just be talking about how he got it for $20, and he just like, look how crispy and clean these are, and I just picked up on so many like words, and I felt like I was so cool watching him, and I just kind of that was my seed. He planted that seed for me.
For sure. So yeah, it's been something that you've been cultivating and been learning and just consuming the YouTube videos at an earlier age. That's even earlier than I thought, man. Yeah. So now fast forwarding to this current era that we're in, specifically when we're talking fashion, I've definitely noticed firsthand the resurgence of vintage clothing and vintage materials. Is that surprising to you, or did you always kind of sense that kind of coming? Because I think you definitely were ahead as far as like you already had this kind of established and you were
Right.
working on it since 7th or 8th grade, but it's only been in the past 3 years that it's become sort of mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream. I will put, yeah. It's kind of like it's almost now that it's here. It came, and I'm like, whoa! Like I feel like I kind of missed it almost. Like I was doing it for so long, and I like was selling it to people, and I knew it was building up because more and more people were buying it every year, and I was telling people this is cool, like, and that stuff just started slowly becoming more and more popular, and by the time that like I realized it, all these people that were kind of questioning me in high school about like what are you doing, like all this stuff. I mean, these people are like asking me questions now, like how can I make money doing this, and it's come full circle. Like it's cool because like yeah, so definitely it's weird. It's I kind of figured it would blow up, but it's weird. Like
When it actually happens, it's almost surreal, especially when you're also still in the moment. Like you're still on eBay, you're still doing pop-ups in the moment, and there's no time to like really just like put your head above water and be like, oh yeah, this is.
yeah. There are some people though that have really seen that. Like, I mean, I got into it, years ago, but the people that got into it, like, there's people that have been doing it since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and that was like a whole different thing back then. Like, there's been different times in history where vintage clothes has been popular. So like, it wasn't popular then recently has gotten popular, but like in the 80s, stuff like that, people were wearing like Victorian clothing as a fashion. So like, vintage clothing has always been like kind of surging in these ways, but like, man, there's people that have really, there's just been so many ups and downs of it over the years, and I'm just happy to kind of hop into the picture where I did. So
You gotta give us those Jedi stories. Who are some of the folks you've met along the way who have been doing it for that long? Do you have any specific people that you can kind of mention? And maybe I think I remember some story that Matt was telling me about a guy you met in Chicago.
Yeah.
Who has his own vintage store, and he's been doing it for many, many years.
That was
since we've been alive.
Dom. He actually passed away, sadly, last month. Rest in peace to him.
Rest in peace, yeah.
But he was a great guy. He was an old French guy. So the conversations that I would have with him and stuff and the opinions that he shared, it was always really funny for us to, banter about things and just chat, and just his view on life was amazing. And one thing that a lot of people that have been doing this a long time will tell you is like it's not all about the clothes, and like it's all about taking a step down from it and kind of like just enjoying the experience you have with it almost. So there's definitely been guys like Dom have been huge, and then there's been people that I've learned a lot of stuff from over the years, like Bearded Mermaid and Big Weekend on Instagram. Yeah. My guy Michael, he's taught me a lot of stuff, and I don't know. There's tons of people that I've got my knowledge from, and there's a guy named John Gluckow on Instagram that I don't know. Yeah, there's just tons of people. Too many OGs to shout out. But
a long list.
Oh, very long.
Yeah. What was the first piece that you found and then you resold, and it was just really like that moment, like maybe you found something for like 50 cents or $2, and then there's someone out there that was willing to give up their house for this thing, this piece of clothing or whatever. Well, do you remember that first one?
Yeah, it was something my dad found for me actually. It was when I was a lot younger, and I had first started going to the bins, and I was still selling a lot of toys, and he found an old like Japanese like tin toy car, like a friction toy where you pull it back and it goes forward. I think it was like maybe you put batteries in it or something, but it was cool. It was like from the 50s. And we threw it up on eBay, and I think it sold for like $300 or something like that. Wow. And at the time, to me, that was like, I was like, wow, like, this is sick. Like,
Christmas came early.
I'm gonna do this like for the rest of my life, and it's cool. He was really supportive about it, and so yeah, it was nice. I just started doing it from then.
Wow. Shout out Pops for
Yeah, for real.
for putting you on in that
Definitely.
moment. Talking about the growth of vintage, you've been a part of the Vintage Fest.
Yep. Shout out Totally Rad Vintage Fest.
Totally Rad Vintage Fest. It's grown from being just something that happened, just here in the Midwest in Minnesota to now.
First one was at Familia Skate Park. We used to do it outside.
Familia Skate Park outside. And I want to say, was it a spring or winter thing? Or maybe like a winter coming into spring?
The first one was, I remember it was cold. It was really
Yeah,
cold. The
I
first
remember
one was
being cold.
freezing.
Yeah.
It was like probably this time of the year. I think it was October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it started, the start of that was, right here in Minnesota. And now you guys have gone to cities such as Kansas City, I believe Cleveland, even places down south, out east. It's just truly expanded, and it just goes to show the rise and resurgence of vintage wear and vintage clothes.
Every city has a pop-up now, it's crazy.
Yeah, every city has a pop-up. How has the Totally Rad Vintage Fest have you seen it grow since that very first, pop-up to like now?
Yeah, it used to be like this thing where it's like we kind of all saw that our friends. I don't even know how many of us even knew them that well at the time, but we knew Vinny. A lot of us knew Vinny, but Sarah and Andy were kind of newer into the vintage scene, and they were like kind of dipping their toes in the water, and they had this great idea with Vinny to like start this vintage event. So at first we were all like, all right, like, yeah, let's do it. This is going to be a fun vintage event. Like, I'm like, finally people were throwing an event here. Like, cause
and it was like a small group of people at that time.
Like kind of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like just like 3 people team. Now it's like they've hired help, and Marcus and Kiki, they're a big part of it, and so I'm not like officially part of like the crew, I would say, but I've done like every single one, and I'm pretty close with those guys, so like we consider it.
It's family.
It's family, So I've seen this family like start really small, and then now it's like it just started as this little thing. We had no idea what it was going to go to, what it would become, and then now here we are going to Little Rock and Louisville, going to New York for a 2-day show in January next year, which it's gonna be amazing. I'm looking forward to that, and just like seeing how, it's just crazy, kind of where it started and what it's become. It's very official now, like the setup of the whole thing, and having to buy, I don't even know what you would call it, but just stuff for the event, banners and, special promotional items. And it's just gotten huge. Like they're shipping people's stuff now for them, like their booths, like their clothes and items. They have trucks that take it to the facility where we're having the event. So it's official, man. Like it's crazy.
And I'm sure in that very beginning moment, people just wanted to have one good event. Right, it just wanted to be like maybe a one-time thing.
Yeah, we were like, cool. If it's good, like we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Type thing, It was like, we'll see how this goes. If it's not good, then we tried it. We had fun. Whatever. It was cheap space to do it.
Right.
I don't even know if Familia like charged them to do it there. I'm sure they did, but I mean, it was a no-brainer. We just went for it.
Yeah. And then how was the interaction with like, you, at least from my perspective, you've been kind of selling on eBay and fulfilling online orders, but is there like a deeper connection and like just a better experience also as like a seller when you are meeting those people in real time where they're at, like at these festivals? They come up to your booth and they're like browsing through all the stuff you have. Is there something like sentimental with that?
Well, I love like talking to people and like making sales in person. And that's one of the reasons why like I don't even post on my Instagram very much anymore, is I feel like I've lost touch with like the online and the like kind of like non-face-to-face part of the whole thing. I've kind of just like honed down into like the older stuff, which I like more, and then the other side of it is these events that I do where I can meet people and talk to people and share my love for this stuff, and kind of just like, I don't know, I just love talking to people and kind of just like seeing the people's outfits, chatting it up. So like, yeah, it's definitely like, and there's people I'll meet on the road too, where it'll be like, I'll meet certain people on the road, like, where they'll help me out with something, like I'll get a flat tire and they'll help me out. And like, I'll like for example, I got a flat tire on the way back in Missouri one time, and this guy helped me. He brought me to his house. He fixed my tire, but he had like vintage clothes and signs and stuff. And I like did a buyout, right? Like I did a pick at his house when we were there.
Not even planned.
Not even planned. He just like I'm like, hey, can I buy that? He's like, oh yeah, I got more stuff down in the basement if you want to come inside. So I mean, I got he actually had a tire sign shop or an old sign from a tire shop in his garage, and I bought that from him. So now in my my main room at my house, I have this tire sign, and I look at it, and I'm like, that's the guy that helped me fix my flat tire when I was in the middle of nowhere in Missouri.
Wow. Shout out to whatever his
Tom. Shout out to Tom
in Missouri.
Yeah. Tim.
Tony.
Tim. Maybe it was Tony. I don't know.
Oh man. So yeah, the hustle that's involved in that, like when you do get a flat tire like that, you know, there's no one really there to help you in that moment. Like
nobody
there. And
depends on where you are, but usually where I am, it's nobody.
Yeah, and being an entrepreneur that you are, and you know, thrift filet, like at the end of the day, you know, it is what you kind of make it, and it is who you kind of bring in to help you bring it to fruition. What have been, as an entrepreneur being here in Minnesota, what have been the challenges with kind of growing the business part too? Because yeah, it's all fun selling toys in 7th and 8th grade, but then, you know, it becomes more and more real, and there's definitely kind of business stuff that has to happen. File your taxes. We hate those, but like,
I mean, that's not fun.
Yeah,
I don't even want to talk about that.
We're not talking taxes. We want
that.
taxes. But like, as far as like the actual business side, how has that also grown with you? Becoming like an entrepreneur here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I can speak to like how the difficulties of it definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still like feel like a dumbass when it comes to like the business side of it. And I'm doing my taxes and stuff, and that's why I have an accountant and whatever that helps me. But like certain things about like when I moved here, at first like I didn't have a car right away, and it's just going back years. But like this is just funny because it's kind of like the start of thrift filet and everything when I was in college. Like I didn't have a car, so one thing I had to do was like borrow people's cars to go thrift. Or like during COVID, I had to like skip class. I'd be like at the bins, like digging, and like my teacher would ask me a question, and I'd be on Zoom, and I'd just pop over and be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I mean, this is pretty bad that I did this. But I was like, I'm at work. I'm sorry. I'm at work. Like, she's like, all right, you know. So, I mean, every project I ever did was like about this. So I mean, now I'm a little bird walking a little bit, but I mean, so like in college it was tough, but now I'm out of college a few years, right? And that's like, now it's time to get serious with it. Like this is like, I mean, I have a degree. Like this is some real job stuff. Like I gotta get serious about this, and it's been hard, like kind of keeping up with it and maintaining the workload. I'm lucky enough to have some good friends that have helped me along the way, like my friend Matt.
Yep, shout out
Your
Matt.
friend Matt. Shout out Matt Miyoki.
Yeah.
He always helped me with pictures and events and the logistics of things, shipping and
inventory.
Inventory, yeah, keeping stuff organized, putting stuff in different piles, sorting things, cleaning stuff.
Yeah.
And just like those things I just listed off back to back to back. I mean, there's so much stuff about that goes into it that it's tough. But I mean, the whole thing is kind of a struggle. The biggest struggle is staying consistent. Like, I think my eBay has totally fallen off this year, but other platforms and other things have grown. So I mean, it's kind of take and give in certain areas. Yeah, like if I'm finding a ton of stuff, I guess at a given time of the year, like in the summer, like if I'm garage selling a lot, I'm not selling as much. So I'm letting stuff. I'm not as much money is coming in because I'm taking advantage of all the opportunities I have while the weather is outside to go out and travel and get stuff that way. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. I can hear the hustle in your voice, and it's always been there, man. It's always been there. But I'm always impressed at how you kind of always have found a way to keep yourself together, and you don't really, even if you might be stressed inside, I feel like you never really show it. You have a good way.
Are you serious? You don't think I really show it? Maybe it's just because I'm so whatever. Like.
Yeah, I think that's what you're kind of laissez-faire with it, but I know deep down inside, like, you know, he's thinking.
I'm hurting sometimes.
Yeah, he might be hurting as well. So there's definitely people that are going to be watching this, that are just maybe got 5 posts on their Depop or are posting on their Instagram story like, hey, I'm trying to sell these 5 items, and then, you know, you scroll through the rest of the story and they got the 5 items, and it's up there. And I've definitely purchased from those people before. Shout out to anyone who posts on their Instagram story the drip, because
Story
I'm always
sales.
looking. Story sales.
Story sales. Yep.
Do you have any kind of words of advice for those folks that are like just kind of getting started in this? You know, they might have the vision, they might have the eye, good taste, but as you know, it takes more than just that if you're really trying to do this. So
yeah, for someone that's like trying to get their name out there, I feel like it'd be like a lot harder now than it was years ago, and like less people. But I mean, goes to anything, you know. So this is not just vintage clothes or selling or reselling. It could be anything. I think the biggest thing now is like, since I'm like kind of somewhat established now, I don't know. I've definitely not put that much work into social media or anything. Mm-hmm. But I would say, from what I see, is that content, and just from what I've heard from other people, I mean, there's unlimited opportunity to create content and put out content. So if you're a singer, you know, and you want to, you know, you want eyes on you, you want to get big. I mean, it all depends on what you're going for too. If you want to become established, if you want to, you know, blow up, if it's just a hobby. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're just posting it on there and people will just discover you. But if you're really trying to build something, you gotta first just find out what works for you, what works for me or for Moise or for someone else might not work for, you know, everyone. Yeah. But then content and just keeping up with that. Like when I started my page, like I was posting like twice a day. Like I was thrifting every day. I was making sure that I was feeding the consumer, the person that was following me. I was making sure they were getting what they wanted. If you're a singer and they follow you, they want to hear you sing. If you sell candles, they want your candles. They want to get them and smell them. You know, whatever it is. Like it could be anything.
Just really caring about, you know, yes, I have this thing in front of me, but then once it gets to you, I want to make sure you're actually happy with it and got what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Man, that is definitely helpful. Definitely helpful. Zach, that's all I really got for you, man. Cool. That's all I really got for you.
This has been fun.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
Definitely feel free to stop by the studio any other time. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to cop me something from Thrift Play. It's been a hot second. You know, I've been gone, but
we're having an event. Having an event. Let me check actually really quick. We're having an event. Our next Minneapolis event.
Actually, plug like the whole next
let's
2-3 months. What's going on?
All right, so coming up on the 11th, we have Indianapolis, and then if anyone wants to make it down, if we have some Minnesota viewers right now, you know, November 18th we got Des Moines in Iowa. January 13th and 14th is New York. January 20th is Pittsburgh, and then there's more after this, but then Minneapolis is February 3rd and 4th. We're doing a 2-day show for Minneapolis.
Where's it going to be at?
It's going to be at the Convention Center downtown.
Ooh, okay. Yep. Convention Center downtown, Minneapolis in February.
Yep.
Okay.
And then kind of, I'll just do a little plug here for my Etsy page.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I've been focusing on more lately. I didn't speak on it really at all. But I haven't been focusing on Thrift-Filet very much. I'm more focusing on my Etsy page. Glad I Found You is what it's called.
Oh, what's the difference?
So the difference was Glad I Found Thrift-Filet. It was, you know, it's not really something that I can brand necessarily. I can't have like a store someday.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, you're worried about the lawsuit or what?
Well, yeah, and it's also just like it's more of a thing that got me known, I guess, but I can't open up I don't know. I'm not going to do that.
Gotcha.
So it'll be called Glad I Found You. But the stuff I post on my Etsy is like kind of like older stuff. It's like 80s and 70s and older. Okay. But it's the stuff it's where I see vintage going in the future. Okay. It's where vintage is. That's the trajectory. It's becoming more niche and like people are. So let's say a guy, his first vintage piece the guy or gal buys is like a wolf sweatshirt. Like someone that's just getting into vintage is like, oh my gosh, a 90s like wolves, like that's really cool. And nature shit is like some of my most popular sellers, some of my favorite stuff to even wear myself. Yeah. It's a great entry level piece for vintage people. But then like on my Etsy page, I'm selling a lot of like stuff that, you know, someone maybe after a couple of years they start getting into like military clothes or like 1970s bell bottoms or older Levi's, stuff like that, certain older sweatshirts. So it's just like more expensive, more niche, really well curated older vintage stuff. Gotcha. I'm glad I found you.
I'm glad I found you.
Just glad I found you.
Glad I found. I like that. I like that.
Thank you very much. It's all about the name. I think the name is very important.
It
with
is.
stuff. Yeah.
It is. All right, my boy. It's been a pleasure.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.